This is the Collecting Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Purse, here with your co-host, Bill Hamill.
I'm somewhat more comfortable collecting real estate than I am collecting other stuff.
This is the Collecting Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Purse, here with your co-host, Bill Hamill. This morning, we interviewed Joe Leun with Evernest Realty. Love hearing a younger guy start into real estate and just seeing all the success he's had so far and where he's going to go in the future. Bill, what do you think about the interview?
I love it. It just takes me back, many years ago, starting at that same age, a little younger, but it's as we were just discussing, it's the most difficult at the beginning. It's trying to find those first two or three deals when people aren't taking you seriously, and you have to break through those periods of time and get some traction and some momentum.
It's definitely the most difficult in the beginning. And as I think you mentioned, 90% of people give up. Joe's not going to be one of those guys. I see his interest in real estate, his love for the industry, and he's active on social media talking about real estate from sun up to sundown. And he's just one of those guys who's going to figure it out and do what it takes to get to where he wants to be.
That's it. That's it. It's, forget about just real estate. Anything that you're doing, you have to have that mindset. Without a strong mindset, just like we were talking about, you give up.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff in this episode, like mindset, long distance real estate investing, being an agent and an investor. I think there's a lot of good stuff in this episode.
Absolutely.
Joe, thank you for being here this morning. Excited to have you on the podcast. Want to get right into it here. Tell me about how you got into real estate.
Hey guys, yeah, thanks for having me again. So I actually went to Binghamton University. That's where I did my last 2 years of college. I transferred from a community college on Long Island, and while I was up there, I was studying economics, and I had about $20,000 when I was graduating, and I sat and I expected one of my professors who taught stocks. I was like, Kenny, I got $20,000 to spend. What should I invest in? Thinking he's going to say Microsoft, Amazon. This guy sits me down and he's like, buy land. I'm like, what are you talking about? Buy land. I don't want 3% returns. And he's like, we just went through everything, scarcity of land, tax depreciate, everything. And you guys know it all. So basically it made logical sense. And then at that point, I started looking into it a little more. I found bigger pockets. Once I got bigger pockets, there's no going back. But I realized, being from Long Island, I couldn't buy a house on Long Island. So I had to go to a market where it's cheaper. And it just so happens there was Long Island that I knew the market of. And then there was Binghamton. Binghamton, obviously much cheaper prices, and you're able to get in much easier. So that was the logical first choice for me, since I kind of had an advantage just knowing the market a little better than anyone else, because I was a student.
Excellent. It's great to meet you, Joe. I love seeing younger people getting interested in real estate, because the earlier you get in, the better off that you'll be. Real estate is a long game. And as I've figured out, close to 100% of millionaires and billionaires hold real estate. And I am very intrigued by your professor telling you buy land. I wasn't expecting the real estate answer from that professor. One thing that I did learn early on also was land doesn't give you income. You can buy land and maybe sell the land and make a profit, which I'm perfectly fine with, but you're paying taxes on land, you have expenses on land, and there's no income. So where did you land after land? Where did you land after that? What was the first asset that you got into? Was it land, or did you get into a income producing piece of real estate?
Yeah, so he kind of yeah, he came at it from, buy land, and then if you have more income over time or you want to build something, you can, or even buy something that has a rental already on it. So basically what I did, I realized I was working a 1099 job. I was in finance sales at the time. So I needed to find someone that I could partner with that could help me get a mortgage. So being 22 years old at the time, maybe 21, 22, and not knowing many people who are looking to get into real estate, my mom was actually open to the idea of it, and she's got no real estate background. So we decided, we'll start with something small. We bought a house in Binghamton. It was a single family, 3 bed, 1.5 bath for 65,000, and it was a flip also. And we didn't have to do a major amount of work. We just had to do some touch ups here and there. I turns out I had to kind of got screwed on the sale. There were some plumbing issues, and this is where mindset comes in because a lot of things went wrong on this deal. But it all worked out. That property's my mortgage, taxes, insurance now are like $530 a month, and it's going to be rented for 1,900 this summer, and it was 1,700 all last summer. So that property's been going really well for me now, and since then I haven't bought any other single families. I'm thinking about maybe getting back into that space because it's a little easier, passing expenses to the tenants. You know.
I think you're the first guest we've had say that their real estate light bulb aha moment came while they're at university. And that definitely sticks with me because I had a similar experience. And Binghamton was actually one of the two schools that I was down to pick between. My dad definitely wanted me to go to Binghamton, but after seeing that University of Tampa campus with the swimming pool on campus, that was hard to walk away from. So a lot of
Yeah, for
similarities there. Probably would have met you at school if I had chosen to go to Binghamton.
sure.
Once you made that decision and now you're a Binghamton investor living on Long Island, what is that like being that long distance investor? Is it hard that first property where you said you had problems and things are going wrong and you're across the state? What's that like?
Yeah, I mean, it was a mess. I was working full time at the time, and my mom was full time, and we had a property with all these things going wrong. And especially when your boss kind of gets on you a bit because you're stepping out of the office to make a couple calls, and that relationship ended up. Uh, he started getting upset with me because I was taking phone calls, making phone calls, and he had every right to be. So I just had a conversation with him, knowing that I started to pick up a passion for real estate, and I really started to enjoy it once I figured out that property and it started going well, and I wanted to get to my next deal. I sat him down and said, this isn't going to work. It's not fair to you, and I need to step away. And we left on good terms. I quit and I left on good terms, and I decided to get my real estate license. But managing long distance can definitely be problemsome because I didn't even have a property manager. So I was handling everything. My mom was handling stuff too. It was just hectic. We were going up on weekends, and being 3 hours away, 3.5, 4 hours, we didn't get much done on weekends. So that screwed us over in terms of how much vacancy costs and all of these other carrying costs that we were stuck with.
So, what was the solution to that? I can certainly relate. When I started at 21, I'm investing in the capital region of New York, which is right in my backyard, and made an intentional decision. Myself and my partner, we bought and we were managing, and same
Mhm.
stuff. Boy, do you learn real estate that way. It is all right. I read the book. That's fine. You get the fundamentals, and then you buy that property, and now you're dealing with tenants, in our case, that were probably in their 40s, 50s, and as 21-year-old kids, we're left having to not only manage these, in all reality, tenants with problems, but also building with problems.
Yeah.
So realizing that you had this challenge at your footsteps, not only with you just leaving your job and this long distance
Yeah.
investment without a property manager, how did you stabilize that to be able to say, okay, now it's good, it's producing income, let's move forward?
Yeah. So eventually I was able to just, because, over time going up on weekends, for one of the big issues we had was we bought the house and then less than 24 hours later, there was an inch of sewer water all over the first floor. So
Oof.
we ended up taking the guy to court. It was just mayhem. That property condition disclosures don't mean anything because they said no material defects. And yeah, like you said, the books could tell you one thing, but then you actually get that property and there's 100 things that you've never heard on a podcast before, a YouTube video, or even a book. So you got to figure it out. And especially when you're backed against a wall. And I was going up Fridays, coming home super late on Sundays, and then going to work Monday through Friday and just doing it all over again. Um, you eventually figured out. But once I quit my job, I kind of went into it a little bit more, and now I'm actually living up here, and it's much easier to manage. If someone calls me, tells me they're listing a property tomorrow, can you see it? Yeah, I'm gonna be there now. So I'm able to build relationships much better now.
What does your management scope look like now? Now that you've been in the game for a couple years and you are in Binghamton, what does your portfolio look like? What does your management look like?
Yeah, so I'm at 3 properties right now. I have one single family that's partnered with my mom, and then I have a second a duplex that's with my mom also, and then my third property was another duplex, and that was with another partner, Alon. And I'm just looking to scale at this point. You know how it goes. Like, you put things under contract, things don't end up working out, you got to step away. I'm learning as I go, constantly making offers, trying to scale at this point. And really just I'm also looking back on every deal, seeing what I've done wrong, seeing what I could have done better, and just making sure moving forward and that I have that, standard operating procedures really down pat.
No doubt. Yeah. Learning from your mistakes. That's
Are you
huge.
100% all in on Binghamton?
What was that?
Are you 100% all in on Binghamton?
Yeah. I mean, at least for now. Eventually, I want to get into other markets. I don't want to just be so at risk in one market, because God forbid, if the university were to disappear, tons of jobs would leave the area, and that would definitely be worrisome for me. But I'd like to get out of state, honestly, where property laws are a little more advantageous for landlords.
Yeah, especially when now they're sending, getting things over my email now saying the legislature is building momentum on this good cause eviction throughout the entire state, which is very,
I was hoping we were going to talk about
very
that.
problematic. And
I,
boy, does that concern me. Boy, does that concern me. I don't trust this New York State government one bit. And you're mentioning these partners, and mom sounds like she's the big one. Is mom looking to scale
yeah.
with you? What does that look like?
So my mom, she lives down on Long Island. She's still working full time. She works really hard. So she works 7 days a week, and she's not really looking to scale. Her goal is just to get down to Florida. Like a typical Long Islander, wants to get out of the get out of the winter weather and just live out the rest of her life in some warm, retirement community. So that's basically her goal. She just wants to get some passive income, and I've just been doing that for her. She's really more hands off at this point, and I just call her every once in a while if there's like a big decision that needs to be made.
I can certainly understand wanting to get to Florida in the winter months. You mentioned not wanting to skip over our new government proposal, which
Yeah.
the lovely government of New York talking about good cause eviction statewide. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely worrisome because that's basically, you know, especially in these markets, that's one of the biggest strategies. You buy a house that's under rented, but they're month to month tenants, and well, what is it? So you're not going to be able to raise the rent as a like a go around between evictions. You're going to have to actually evict, right?
Well, ultimately, the biggie here is you can't even just not renew a lease. They're basically saying that someone can hold over a lease, which is in my world is breach of contract. They're just ignoring any property rights, any contract rights, which I find absolutely amazing, where somebody can hold over their lease as long as they continue to pay, they get to stay. And then they're going to put a
Mhm.
ceiling on rental increases to the point where I think they're down to originally they were talking 5%, now they're down to 3%, and it's a moving target. And you know how it is with these types of governments, they're going to label it something like good cause eviction. Oh, that doesn't sound bad, does it? They describe it in very vague terms. Next thing you know, it's law, and then we get to read it, and then that's when we see how disturbing it is. Um, yeah, that's just my.
From my understanding, the really concerning part of the language of it is that you can't evict anyone even if it's a short-term tenant. So if you have someone on Airbnb and they keep paying, you can't tell them to leave. If you have a student who keeps paying for their dorm, you can't tell them to leave the dorm. You can't evict them if they keep paying. Doesn't
Yeah.
make sense.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's almost like they don't want you to have ownership rights anymore or something like that.
Yeah, we could do a whole podcast on that. But getting back to your story here, why we're all here today, you got to that point where you decided to go all in on real estate. You left your first job because you had that real estate calling. And at that point, you decided to be an agent and an investor. That's a common topic that we hear discussed. Is it worth it for an investor to be an agent, or should they hire a professional and stick in their own lane? What are your thoughts on that? And what has your experience been so far being that dual role of investor and agent?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not for anyone. There's a lot of problems that come up and a lot of stressors in just being an agent. You could show someone 100 houses and then they could say, you know what, I think we're going to rent. And like, that's just a gut punch right there. But or you finally get it under contract and then they get an inspection done and then, they an outlet's not grounded and they freak out, and they don't want to buy the house anymore. So it's definitely not for anyone. But for me personally, I had bad experiences with agents. I was running through agents, being a newer investor and trying to get, the best deal possible. You're going to make offers that your buyer's agent isn't going to be happy with, especially if they're not from investing themselves. So that's kind of the problem I was running into. I had these part-time real estate agents who maybe moms who are just trying to do it for their wine nights on the weekends. And you know I'm out there trying to make offers and I have my numbers telling me I can't go higher than this number, but they really just want to get their commission check. So they're going back at me. And I went through a lot of them and I couldn't find one I was happy with up here. So I figured, I'll be an investor friendly agent. I'll be that agent that's going to help my clients run the numbers. And if it's not a good deal, it's not a good deal. I'm okay with making low ball offers. That's no problem with me.
Yeah, I love that low ball. That's a phrase that never gets old. That first book that I read, it was all about just run around and make low ball offers. If you do it 20 times, there's it's a numbers game. Maybe you'll get one
Yeah.
deal out of 20. So dealt with the same thing, dealing with different agents in the capital region. And yeah, they're not excited about showing me a bunch of houses where I'm just throwing in offers 30% under list. and they're spending time on it, which I understand. And ultimately, that's what led me to becoming an agent and a broker so I could represent myself and do what I
Mhm.
needed to do to get deals that actually worked. And realizing
Yeah.
that you've run into some, trials and tribulations on that residential side, dealing with buyers that you spend a lot of time on and sometimes don't buy. Have you thought about
Yeah.
getting more into the representation and purchasing of commercial investment property, the 5 units and more, where people seem to be a little bit more serious in that space?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was a point when I was on Long Island where I was kind of focusing on um commercial a little more, maybe like commercial leases. And I was doing that, trying to do that for a bit. I didn't really have much success. I did it for maybe, I really didn't stick to it too much. I just, it just seemed a little, but you're right. It definitely seemed a little harder to break into, but you're right. Everyone means business at that level, and everyone's open to anything as long as it, is a good number for them, you know? So I kind of played with the idea a bit, but at this point, I'm kind of starting to shift my model towards turnkey student rentals up here. So that means basically I want to find a property that I can either be the agent for or I could bring the buyer for, and then I'll help them stabilize that property, get tenants in there, and basically just hand them over the keys, and everyone wins in that situation. And they can be completely passive, whether I'm actually an equity partner on that deal or they're just paying me some sort of property management fee or acquisition fee, whatever it may be. That's kind of where I'm shifting because as I kind of build my network and meet more and more people, I'm starting to realize that real estate is kind of like not a lot of people understand it or don't even want to understand it, especially if they have a W-2. So a lot of people on Long Island have been reaching out to me just saying, I hear your houses in Binghamton are so cheap. I can't afford anything on Long Island, but can you help me get something up in Binghamton? And that's kind of where I've been focusing my energy a bit.
Perfect.
Going back to the commercial versus residential, from my experience so far, the commercial just makes sense. Not only are you dealing with serious buyers and serious sellers, but you're going through a very similar sales process. You're just putting a zero at the end of the number.
Mhm.
For these Long Island people reaching out to you saying, "Hey, we're seeing your success in Binghamton. It would be great to represent them." But the first thing that comes to mind for me is why not partner up with them and start building your portfolio with these Long Island investors you have in your backyard.
Yeah, and that's open. It's just it's one thing to get paid a fee for helping someone get a property stabilized and get it rented and everything like that, and it's another thing to partner up and get in bed with that person. So
Mhm.
that's definitely in the cards for sure, though.
So, what does it look like? I know that you're an agent in Binghamton, stirring up some business. You're building up your portfolio. You certainly have some opportunity doing deals with people in Binghamton looking to buy a property, or maybe you'll be able to partner up on a
Mhm.
property with them. Are you looking to also grow a property management company?
Yeah, so that's kind of one thing I've been looking towards. I'm doing it at this point, and I'm up here, so it seems like it's the next logical step. Um, I I'm building out handymen and plumbers, contractors, things like that, because the end goal here is to just be hands off, regardless whether it's brokerage, property management, investing, whatever it may be. I want to be hands off, and I understand that's going to take time. But part of the reason I'm in this market is and actually living here is so I could build those relationships, get those systems down, and make sure I can. If I want to go the property management route and help others invest and help others grow their portfolio, that's kind of where my head's at. It's a little sloppy, but I
Big
like it so
question.
far.
When you have work to do and apartments to turn over, are you the one painting the apartment and doing handyman work?
So I haven't had to turn over units yet. I did some work, like we painted a bit. I'm trying to, so like property number one, right? I did all the work ourselves. Except for having a plumber come for the serious stuff and electrician for the serious stuff, but everything I could do, I did. Property number two, I went much more hands off. I did some of the work. And then property number three, I'm not lifting a hammer. I don't want to paint anything. And I'm just slowly getting there. Sometimes when you see the prices these guys charge, you're like I should do it myself. But I'm starting to realize, you can't grow the business. You can't grow the business. You can't work on in the business. What is it? So
The
what
way
do you
I
guys
know it
know?
is,
You can't be working in the business if you want to
yeah,
work on the business.
become an
Yeah, exactly.
owner, not an operator.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, you can't scale if you got your head in the toilet. So
That's a
that's
new
one
one
thing I've
right
been
there.
really.
I like that. I wish I knew that.
It's a
Wish
good
I
way
knew
to
that
put it.
25 years ago.
And and I've been impressed by your construction knowledge. I see what you put out there on social media. It seems like you are very hands-on. When you say the ultimate goal is to be hands-off, I question that because I don't know if this business is ever hands-off, but
Yeah.
we'll see. I think that's everyone's goal. I don't know if that's a reality. I'm wondering, in this Binghamton market, we've already had Nate Weinberg on the podcast. Great episode early on in the podcast. We have another friend of ours in our inner circle who's in the Binghamton market. How much competition is there in this market? It's a student rental, student little city. There
Mhm.
can't be too much of a real estate market. How competitive is it?
Oh, it's competitive. So you were talking to Mark, right?
Mark
Mark.
is another friend in the inner circle. Yep.
Yes. So Mark actually, Stephen, thanks for connecting me with him. So my current contractor was referred to me by Mark, and that contractor's been killing it for me so far. Um, but in terms of some guys have the mindset, rising tide lifts all boats, and other investors are willing to talk with you. And then some guys, you ask them for a handyman and they're like, no, they start getting all weird because they don't want to share their guys. Um, and I get that. As I start working on off market properties and really start building the funnel like that, and I'm calling owners directly, you start realizing that those guys have such big connections where they don't even have to call these people, they're getting
Mhm.
called. They're saying, oh, I want to sell my house, and it's the perfect location. Meanwhile, I'm calling these people and they're like, all right, I already have two offers. It needs to be over 180,000, otherwise don't waste my time. And I'm like, is this even on the market yet? Like,
And we're also
so it's definitely competitive.
we
Sorry,
all
you go,
start
Bill.
there. Ultimately, when I was 21, there was people who were 30, 40 years old who had a huge portfolio. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you're left having to work your own deal flow, stay patient, and find your deals.
Mhm.
You're not looking to necessarily compete with those big players. There's always going to be plenty for everyone. I know you mentioned doing some off market stuff. So is that your focus? Where, I know that you
Mhm.
got the MLS, you have cold calling, you can do mail campaigns, you can drive for dollars. What are you doing to find deals?
Yeah. So just back to the competitive thing real quick. So Binghamton, like you said, Stevens, a very, very small market. But one thing I've been focusing on, because there's a few blocks that are just flooded with student rentals at this point, and student rentals are kind of my focus. So what I've been trying to do is get outside those main blocks and still be able to get students in there where it's a little less competitive. Those houses that are on those main blocks, they don't last a day on the MLS. Now, if I can go further out and I can, find where the bus line meets a decent property, then I can make it work and I could still get students in there, still get decent rents and still make it work. And it's just a little outside, that typical student rental area. And so, yeah. And Bill, to your point, I've been cold calling. That's a big thing for me at the moment. I've door knocked. Problem with door knocking in an area like this is it's usually tenants that are in there, and that doesn't help me. Um, then I've also done mailers. Mailers, I didn't really have much success with. I got some people who were interested. I tried a little bit of everything, but I found that calling has just been the best for me rather than going and walking in the street. I can just sit at my desk wearing pajamas and make as many calls as possible. And that's probably where I'm really starting to focus. I just pull the list off PropStream, then I'll take that list, I'll put it into batch skip tracing, I think it's called, and I'll just get that whole list put out, and then I'll just hop on the phone and just start calling.
Through trial and error, you find your sweet spot, you find your niche, and you lock onto it. You build, you grow, and you start building around it. And I think that's life. It's business, and that's what you're doing. I like how when I asked about competition, you took it to a positive place, and you said, "Yeah, there's competition out there, but that one guy who's a competitor, he actually helped me with a contractor, and
Yeah.
and you made it something positive." I've been impressed by, I guess, your mentality since I first got connected with you online and recently saw that you completed the 75-day hard challenge. That's something that I've tried, I think, 3 times now, and I haven't
Oh,
done it successfully. Probably about a week in every time I say something that I don't want to say right now on the podcast, and I throw it out the window and say, yeah, maybe another time. So tell us about your experience with that, and how has mentality impacted your real estate investing?
yeah. I mean, so Steven, what do you normally give in on? Is it like what the diet? What do you normally give in on?
I'll say it's not the diet and it's not the exercise.
What is this
So if you know the
Okay.
75
what is
day,
the 75-day challenge?
So Bill,
go ahead,
it's
Joe.
this guy Andy Frisella. He started the challenge. He's an entrepreneurship guy. He's got some podcasts, got some books, and basically what it is it's trying to build your discipline. So for 75 days in a row, you have to do a 45-minute two 45-minute workouts, and one of them has to be outdoors. You have to drink a gallon
Oh,
of
I heard
water.
this. Okay.
You have to, yeah, read 10 pages of a nonfiction or self help book, follow a diet, no alcohol, no cheap meals. And there might be a thing or two I'm missing on there. And if you don't finish all those every day, then you have to start from day one and start over. So I did it. It was really hectic. Last few days were the worst. But what I really wanted to do was focus on my discipline, because discipline's like a
Mhm.
muscle. If you don't work it out, then you're going to lose it. And I recognize that my discipline is very fragile, so I like to do things like that consistently. And yeah, it was definitely a test for sure. There were times where had to go for a walk outside at midnight, and it's snowing and like 3 degrees outside, and I'm wearing winter gear, and then I have to wake up the next morning and do it all over again. It was
That's what
definitely
really
interesting.
impressed me. You were doing this in the winter in upstate New York. I'm seeing you jumping rope at 11 p.m. in the middle of a snowstorm.
Yeah, it wasn't the best, but I'm glad I did it. It really gives you a bit of confidence and definitely discipline that carries over into business and to everything else in life,
No
you know?
doubt that is building muscle. So when you saw him jump in rope, were you documenting this on social media?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I one of the things is I wish I had other people to do it with. And moving forward, I'm actually, because I think masterminds are very important. Getting around people who have similar mindsets are extremely important. And I think it would have been much easier if I had people who were doing it with me. And as I posted it, people started coming out of the woodwork saying, "Hey, I'm doing this too." Like, and so would start talking about it, and it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome when you could, some person you've never even met before in a different part of the state, different part of the country, they're doing the same thing as you, and they're going through the same struggles.
No,
You know.
absolutely. And that type of thing, that discipline, that muscle. So when you complete that type of a challenge, you're left then saying, I can do anything that I set my mind to do. That's the idea, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, so many people, sticking to real estate will just quit. I can't compete with the big guys in Binghamton. The brokers don't take me seriously. I've tried this, I've tried that. Ultimately, you're making a bunch of reasons why it's not going to work for you. Where
Mhm.
I guess I'm looking back with me, it's more of the mindset. If they can do it, then I can do it. We're all the same.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's just
Yeah.
staying patient, and you just have to break through and get a few more properties under your belt where you have the traction, you build that momentum, and then everybody's
Mhm.
taking you seriously, and you're a player in the market. That's easier said than done. But
Yeah.
what is your goal over the next year as far as creating that momentum?
Mhm. Yeah. So my goal that I want to have. So I'm 23 right now. I'm turning 24 this June. My goal by 25 is I want to have $10,000 a month in passive income, in strictly passive income. Um, and there's a lot of things that need to happen there. I really have to scale the portfolio, and I also have to either get the property management down or just outsource that entirely. So in the next, the way I run my deals now, even if I'm not taking a property management fee on a couple of my properties, I'm running my deals with 10% property management fees and all these other fees associated with it, because if I can't buy it and it doesn't, if I buy it and it doesn't work for me to be passive, it's not worth it to me. It's not in line with my goals, and I should not even bother and waste my time. So that's kind of the big thing that I'm really focusing towards. And I'm trying to, you know, really focus my vision on just that $10,000 a month. Cause for me, that's huge. And if I can get that, I could either continue in real estate, I could take a year off, I could do whatever I want at that point. And I'd be happy.
No, that's a great goal. That's a great goal. You get to that point, and then you work off of that. Joe, this is the collecting real estate show. They say that you have to have three of something to make a collection. So we're going to wind this up with
Mhm.
three questions for you in 5 words or less. What is impactful in real estate investing for you?
Hmm. What do you mean?
Basically, mindset driven in real estate. What
Okay.
is 5 words that are super impactful to put you forward?
In 5 words or less, what makes a real estate investor successful?
Okay. There we go. Just the discipline and really just grinding and pushing through, honestly.
That's like 20 words, dude.
I guess we need to craft that so it's a little more flexible.
It's a tough question. It's a
It's
tough
a tough
question.
question. It deserves a little bit of thought. Number two, what is
Yeah.
your 1 year personal goal?
So my 1 year personal goal is, it's the same as my business. Goal is just $10,000 a month passive income. Make it happen.
No, we need something outside of business here. This is
Outside.
always our pushback.
Oh,
What
okay.
makes Joe excited outside of real estate?
All right. You know what my 1 year personal goal is? It's to be able to bench 225
All right.
at the gym.
Love it.
Once I make it to the 2 plate club, I'll be happy.
There you go.
Awesome. That's a
Yeah, I
great
love that.
personal goal.
Yeah, I love counting those plates. I remember those days. That's good. Last is, how can Steve and I or the listeners assist you? How do we contact you?
Yeah. So my Instagram is at joe.leun, and I'm really active on there. You could DM me, you can message me. I'm always posting. I always post about like what I'm up to, and also, I'd be happy to hop on a call and discuss things a little further. Just shoot me a DM, and I'll send you over my number.
Excellent. We appreciate it, Joe. It's great having you on. Feel free, or
Awesome.
definitely stay in touch with us. We definitely have some people in that Binghamton market that we can connect you with, and
For
it's
sure.
all about creating that network. But thanks for being on the show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being on, Joe. I can't wait to have you gone again in 5 years.